So what is IC Cloud's video surveillance system? It's a basic cloud storage platform. You have different plan options between snapshot, you have motion options, or 24/7 recording options. Now, as you go higher in each tier, you also get the previous tier's capabilities. For example, if you go with the motion plan, you will get also the snapshot capabilities as well with your plan. Now, we'll get more in depth in the plans and the price breakdown and all that later on throughout the slide. I don't want to spend too much time on it right now, but you have options from 14 days all the way up to 2 years of retention. There's a difference between your retention versus your monthly billing. The retention is just referring to how long we're going to store that data, where everything is month by month. I did put a note here about prices are based on 2 megapixels. Now, by default, we are looking at the resolution of the camera. So the pricing in the system is only going to display at 2 megapixels. However, we will support higher resolution cameras, 4 megapixel, 8 megapixels, whatever the customer has, but we're going to charge you more. For example, a 4 megapixel camera is the same as two 2 megapixel cameras. So if you got a $5 plan for one camera, now that camera is going to cost you $10 because you're paying for 2 channels. We'll go more in depth again, as I said, later on. So let's go on. So security obstacles that people face without cloud, they fail to meet compliance requirements or insurance purposes where they require to store footage off site. Or let's say if you don't have cloud and you have a thunderstorm, we've all seen it plenty of times. We get RMAs all the time when a unit's blown because the power supply is blown from an electrical surge. Well, what do you do if your system gets fried? You no longer have your footage because all that is destroyed now. If you had a cloud storage, it's no longer an issue because now guess what? All that data is still there. It won't affect our servers. If you get broken into and you had somebody ransack your house or your place of business, if they rip out your recorder and you have no storage anywhere else, guess what? Now you are dead in the water. You have nothing to really play back. And again, if you had a cloud, then you would go ahead and retrieve your data regardless of them taking it or not. You don't have extra infrastructure to deal with. You don't have to worry about firmware updates, et cetera, for the cloud system. Obviously, you still have to maintain your own gear, your cameras on site or your recorder on site. That will still be independent. But the cloud platform, you don't have anything you actually have to maintain for it. We maintain it ourselves on the back end. Scalability wise is also another issue. A lot of install space. It's like, well, I want this many cameras, and later on I want to add more, and then I want to add more. Well, in a lot of cases, if you have like a 16 channel NVR, when it's full and you have 16 channels filled up, now if you want more channels, you have to add another recorder or get a bigger recorder to keep adding more and more cameras. So now there's more and more costs, et cetera. It makes it difficult to actually expand and scale up. So from the scalability wise, you're able to easily scale. You can add as many cameras as you want. It does not matter. We can add as many sites as you want. Realistically, it's how much money do you want to spend? That's what it comes down to. The more cameras you want to add, there's more plans you got to pay for, and that's really it. We have no limit. You don't need no extra additional hardware in a sense to add it. One of the limitations with Ella was that you had to have a separate Ella box. You don't have to have that with the cloud platform. Any questions so far? Nope. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. So, I mean, this is kind of reiterating some of that stuff. So, for example, this is a turnkey deployment. There's not a whole lot of setup that has to be done. Realistically, if you can do port forwarding, you can be done in a matter of minutes if it's already set up. So it doesn't take a whole lot. A lot of the control is on the end user side, and it's mainly controlled by them. They can control their subscriptions. They can easily cancel it. They can download their invoices, et cetera. And we'll get more into that, and I'll show you guys how to do that. This is all basically self-service. This is all going to be on their end. They get to do it all. Only time they will call us realistically is if maybe their camera's down and they wanted to know why. Only thing we're going to do is see if it's online or not, and then we'll tell them what to do to help remedy the situation. But it makes for an easy install, easy setup. You don't have to spend a lot of time and man hours getting programmed. We'll continue on from here. So basically, how do you access the platform? That's going to be the most important thing. Everybody wants to know, well, how do I use it? How do I view it, et cetera? There is a desktop software and there is a mobile app independently made for this. This does not use the Smart ICRSS. It does not use ICRSS Pro. It does not use the Dash app. This has a completely separate app. The ICR Cloud app itself is designed for simplicity. It has this minimal amount of data on there. When you use the mobile app, it is literally just live view and playback and snapshot. That's all you get on there. You view the camera, you can play it back, and you can download. Download is still being worked on for the mobile app. Unfortunately, it's not available right this moment, but it is a feature that is being worked on. There are a lot of features that we would like to see and like to add along the way as we're going, but in reality is there's only so much development time, and there's only so many things we can pump out in such a short period of time, in a sense. So as time goes on, more and more things will be added. There are going to be things where you're going to see that, well, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. Great, we guys can provide that feedback, and we'll try to get to and add it in. There are quite a few things we already have on board on the list, but it's going to take some time. So we'll continue from there. Later on, I'll show you guys the actual desktop software. It has a couple features that you cannot find on the mobile software, such as like there's a map option. So like, let's say I have a food chain and I have 10 different locations. I can easily now just pull up a map, click on the location on it, and it's going to load those cameras from that location. It makes it a lot easier to find which ones I'm looking for if I just want to look at the map. Oh, I want to look at the one that's in Pompano. Oh, I want to look at my restaurant in West Palm, or the one in Miami, for example. And that's some of the things you can do with the map. Live view playback is pretty easy to use. It's fairly, anybody should be able to realistically use it on their own. And there isn't download options. There's a share function, and we'll go through all this when we get to that actual desktop usage as well. Any questions so far about how to view your camera system? Yes.
For the live view playback, are they able to just go to like a date and a time, or is it?
For playback, yeah, you can set the date and time when you're pulling back, but live view, that's just viewing the camera feed
live
live.
view.
Okay.
For the playback.
Yes, they can specify the date and time that they want to go back to. Now, if they pick a 14-day retention plan and they go back 30 days, that data's gone. We cannot retrieve it. It's permanently deleted. Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't have it. We're not storing it. There's no way for us to go back and retrieve it again. So just keep that in mind. So if they need plans that they're going to last long, they need to pick the appropriate plan. They come back later, we're going to tell them, so sorry, but there's nothing we can do to help you.
The additional charge for the audio portion, or is it audio and video?
Audio and video together.
Together.
As long as you have it enabled on your report, on your camera feed, and it's being reported back to us in the stream, we'll record it as well. So we're going to go over in a moment the actual connection setup. Now there was questions about like alerts and alerts on the go and whatnot. Unfortunately, right this moment, the app itself does not have direct push notification. However, you can still get notifications to your phone, and that is via text message. All we need is their phone number, and they can do that themselves. They can put their number in. There's a spot, they put it in themselves. They just put in the phone number. I don't care what carrier they're with. It doesn't matter if they're AT&T, Verizon, etc. All we're going to do is send them a text message. They can also get an email. All they got to do is punch in their email, which was already put in when they signed up anyways. So all they have to do is select a little checkbox for notification via email, and they'll get notification. However, something to keep in mind. Motion on the cloud, as I said, it's a basic cloud platform. It's not advanced. There's no AI. There's no advanced analytics. There's no IMD. There's no IVS. We're not looking at that. We're just looking at general motion. If there's movement, and whether it's a tree, shadow on the ground, etc., it's going to record it. And if you go for notifications via motion, you're going to get every single one of those as well. So be mindful if you're going to put text message, because then you're going to get alerted all night long. That's the one thing to keep in mind. So as I said, it's a basic platform. If we add analytics, etc., it's going to cost us more money. It means you're going to pay more money for those plans. Maybe it's something that happens down the road, but currently it's not available. We'll continue on. So one of the features on playback, people wanted the ability to be able to see like thumbnail snapshots, etc., from the video feed itself. Now, the video feed itself would be able to show thumbnail snapshots. However, what it will not show is these IBS rules, because the IBS rules are generated by software level, and that won't show up on the actual feed. So when you're pulling an RTSP feed, you're just going to get the raw data. You're not going to be able to see the green boxes and the blue boxes. So, but you will still be able to see the actual snippets every X amount of time. Originally, snapshot was once every 60 seconds, but we increased the agility on it. It's currently at once every 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds, the platform will take a snapshot. Regardless if you have the snapshot plan, the motion plan, or the 24/7 recording plan, it will take a snapshot. That interval is not changeable. You cannot change it the frequency and decrease it or increase it. It's set on the server backend, 15 seconds, every 15 seconds, it's gonna take a snapshot from the moment it's added. So it's not like 1:015 is gonna take a snapshot, 1:30 is gonna take a snapshot, it's gonna take it 15 seconds, it's gonna take a snapshot the moment it connects, and then every 15 seconds after that. So it might be off on the exact time frame. But every 15 seconds is at least is the best we can do for agility wise. So you're not going to get that down to the second scrubbing functionality that you're able to get on like YouTube. YouTube, you're able, when you scrub through the playback bar, it's every single second has an image, and you're able to quickly scan it.
More like
We
Netflix.
have it every 15 seconds. Yeah, it's closer to like a Netflix scrubbing functionality. So, I mean, there's caveats to it. I mean, we don't have, it's gonna take a lot more processing, it's gonna take a lot more data, it's gonna put a lot more on the servers. That's just gonna increase the cost if we wanna try to get it down to every single second, which didn't seem cost effective at the time when we were doing it. Because we're trying to keep it low, especially comparing it to the other cloud platforms in the market as well. Any
So
questions? Is it?
like the dash out, just do a 10-second prior to an event to post.
So you're talking about the pre-recording and post-recording.
Yes.
So the way the cameras themselves connect to our recorder, to our cloud platform is generally via RTSP, and we require TCP connection. So what the cloud platform is doing, I was going to go over this a bit, but we can go over it now. It's connected to your recorder via TCP in a sense to receive that alerts from the recorder itself. So depending on what you trigger in the recorder, that's where it's going to trigger on the server. So if you have pre-recording, pre-triggering for motion in the recorder, it shouldn't reflect over. But it requires IC real-time hardware. This does not work with third-party stuff in that case. So that's something to keep in mind when you're adding third-party. If you're trying to do motion, it's not going to work 90% of the time. But IC real-time stuff would generally
IC
work.
real-time specific.
Correct.
And then as far as, just to go back to the snapshot portion, because in the recorders, a lot of people are using that for
Time lapse?
not for building construction, watching it come out. Normally what they do from the recorder, after they gather all their snapshots as the building's being built, coming out of the ground, 6 months of snapshots every hour or whatever, are you able to go to the cloud, pull that, use the third-party software and create that movie?
So you don't have to use a third-party software. You can if you're trying to stitch multiple ones together. In the actual cloud platform, we actually do time-lapse download for you.
Okay.
You do have the option to do a time-lapse download.
That's big.
So you're able to right away from the platform. You specify how many frames per second in the time lapse. You set your start time and your end time, and you can download that clip, and it's going to combine it all together and put it in. It's one time lapse. However, the snaps, if they wanted to do something like that at the construction site, they would have to go and make sure they download that video every 30 days because the snapshots are only retained for 30 days. So every 30 days, they're going to have to get multiple.
So
if you're trying to do it over 6 months, then you're gonna have to go pull it every month. You're gonna have to make sure you pull it, and then you can use a third-party software to combine it all.
That's the max 30 days.
30 days is the max on snapshot, unless you have an actual storage plan for motion or video. Well, 24/7 in this case, with 6-month plan or 9-month plan, but then you're paying a lot more for that on a monthly basis.
Yeah, the only thing I would consider, just to bring it up, is in the cannabis industry. There are certain states require Pennsylvania 3 years. So
we could always add a 3-year plan.
That's
I already talked
I'm just
about.
mentioning that because I've come across that quite a few times.
We just initially started out up to the 2-year mark.
Yeah.
Because even the 2-year mark, it's like $100 a camera per month. That's how much you're paying every single month for each camera.
Yeah.
We can do a 3-year retention plan. No problem. We can do the math to figure it all out, and we can throw another one on there. But it just didn't make sense at the time to just right away go in and add it in there. Once we get a request for we have no problem putting it in there. If we actually get somebody in that area.
Cannabis.
And then we'll price it out and figure out what it's gonna be at that point and add it up on there. It's just that we didn't go and spend the time doing the math when I can rather spend time doing some of the other stuff right now. Until we get an actual request, then we'll go adjust it.
So you haven't broken it down to if somebody wants to do 200-300 cameras, we have no quantity break right now.
There is no extra discount. The price is what it is at.
Straight across the board.
We already priced it down as much as we can. It's been reduced as much as it can, and we're calculating the fact that it's how long we're gonna pay for that storage, and the how frequent they're going to be downloading this video footage. Because every time they play, it costs us. We're paying a fee, and if a site's constantly downloading every single time, it's going to cost us.
Makes sense.
So we have to make sure there's enough cushion to account for that. So there is no discount. If something changes, then maybe, but until then, it's not happening. Yes, sir.
Somebody has,
Per camera, you said?
It's like $100 per camera for 2 years.
somebody has 400 cameras, and the resources are going to be chewed up pretty quickly.
Yep. Yeah, what's up, Jerry?
I'm sorry, are you gonna list this pricing at this point or not yet?
Yeah, the prices are all listed. We're on one of the slides in the future. Once we get through, we're gonna go. It's coming up. A couple more slides. To go. We'll have all the prices listed.
We're gonna do it. Hey.
Quick question on pricing, and I apologize if I missed it. Is the pricing, that's for the direct end user, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah, direct end user. There's no adding on top. There's none of that.
There's no residual. So what's the advantage of the dealers sell this? Because that will be asked.
The fact that they get to get the job. If the job requires it and they need it, then they have it. There's no advantage for the dealer. They don't get anything kickback. There's no cutback for them. To do that, we got to increase cost. Go ahead.
Understand. So strictly a pass-through service that they get the labor out of.
Yep. They make the money on programming, getting it set up, installing it, and getting the overall job. But yeah, they don't get any monthly kickbacks. All right, so let's go.
Well, in that case, hold on, Heidi. I'm sorry. What if then they ask if they purchase it, can they resell it?
There is no reselling option through it. I mean, however they want to try to figure it out with their customer. Because on the end of the day, when you set up the cameras and you install and you set up your cameras that you're going to charge for, it's all done on the platform. You put your credit card information and it charges that card. There's nothing else to it.
Okay.
So we have no way to give them anything.
I know what you're saying. The guys are going to take and make $1 on it.
They want to try to make it.
Put their credit card on it.
Their credit card's going to get charged. So they got to go make their own credit card processing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's on them.
Someone's going to do that. So.
Well, I mean, if they do it and they manage to sell it, more power to them.
They're all looking to make an RMR.
Yeah, I get it. Unfortunately, right, this time we don't make it easy. We're not dealing with that whole LF fiasco, and this one's raising it by $2. This guy's raising it by $7. We don't want to deal with all that. There was too many issues with that platform before. So we're gonna go ahead and continue on from here. So if you can basically put it on an IC real-time recorder, you can add it to the cloud. You can add a PTZ camera, you can add a thermal hybrid, you can add dash, multi-cameras, etc. However, the cloud platform, again, it's a basic platform. No PTZ control. There's no two-way talk on the cloud platform. You're not going to talk out through the camera. You'll be able to hear and listen because if you have audio enabled, but there's no control from the cloud to the camera. It's just meant for viewing or live view and playback. You're viewing, monitoring, that's it. You don't have PTZ controls. You can't move PTZ left and right. You want to do that? Go connect directly to your camera system using Smart SRS or iSRS Pro. Any questions in regards to that?
The fact that you have Dash down there, does that mean they get the choice of either going to Dash Cloud?
If you can put it on a recorder, you can get it on. So you have to add that Dash product to the recorder.
Okay.
Dash has its own cloud. So I mean,
If
realistically.
you stream it directly to that, you could choose to go take it off of that.
Correct.
If you want. Got it.
So if they decide that they want to record that Dash camera all in one cloud platform, then they can. But realistically, Dash has its own $2-3 plan.
I would stick with the Dash.
I would just stick with the Dash, it's easier, and you get more features out of the Dash.
You get a lot more.
You get the notifications, you get the cloud, it's easy or whatever.
Yep.
So for that, it doesn't really make sense to do it, but the option is there, as long as you can add it, basically, it can be done. So that also goes in regards to like third-party cameras, but so the other question comes up is like, all right, well, you guys have got all this cloud, et cetera. Do you think recorders will ever be going away? In my honest opinion, no, recorders will never go away. Recorders will be here until like the end of time, realistically speaking, because not everybody's gonna want to pay a monthly subscription. And you need to be able to store it in more than one location. What if you lose internet? Your site's still up and running, your cameras are still up and running, but if you have no internet, then it's not uploading that data to the cloud. So there are a lot of different benefits to still have physical hardware on site. Can customers though go in and install just cameras by themselves and without a recorder? Sure, yeah, no problem. You can do that. You can add those cameras to the cloud, no problem. I can get every single one of those added. But if you lose internet on site because your Comcast goes out or your Verizon, Xfinity, or whatever the service you're using, the internet goes down and you're out for 2 hours, well, guess what? That footage is gone. I don't have it on the cloud because I never received it. Because we're live recording this. We're not retrieving it from your recorder or your camera's SD card. We're live recording it. We're getting the video feed from your system and we're recording it instantly to our server.
So best practices would be not only the recorder, but also the modem router should be on a backup standby.
Exactly. Correct.
Multiple tiers.
Yep, if their infrastructure needs to make sure it's maintained and up and running at all times. If their infrastructure goes down, there's nothing I can do remotely for them. Any questions in regards to that? No? All right, we'll continue moving on. So this is talking a little bit about continuous reporting, 24/7, et cetera. While also IP cameras are the best of recommended versions to be added to cloud, realistically, we can also add HTVS cameras, the coax cameras to the cloud platform, as long as it's an IC real-time recorder, because the recorder itself is the one that's acting as the middleman. So as long as it's on an IC real-time recorder, it can be done. However, something to keep in mind from the sales aspect of it is coax recorders have less network throughput capabilities than an NVR. That being said, you need to be mindful of your network resources, because if you're overloading your network on what your recorder can handle, you're going to have a bad experience because your recorder is bottlenecking, not so much our cloud platform bottlenecking. If the recorder gets bottlenecked and the recorder's having a hard time giving out a smooth feed, then when you go to check back the playback or live view, it's going to be not smooth. Or you might try to load up your ICRSS Pro app, for example, and you're having 16 coax cameras on a 16-channel low-end model coax recorder. It might not play that smoothly because you're using up every channel 2 megs of traffic plus 16, so 32 megs of traffic just to send it to our cloud platform, plus to your phone, and et cetera, et cetera. So all these factors do come into play when you're using HCAVS. There's a lot more constraints on the AVS side because of the recorder's capabilities. So just be mindful when dealing with recorders. And only 1 or 2 cameras, 3 or 4 cameras, sure, no problem. It's gonna usually you have enough bandwidth on your coax recorders, it'll work just fine. Unless you got something from like 2011, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm sorry. Buy a new recorder.
That was my next question, the fact that we've been backwards compatible.
So on a technical level, we are backwards compatible. I can get 24/7 recording backwards compatible without any issues. Although on it,
it's like you have flex machines, and we also had
there were so many different things.
multi technologies that some people had. Some of our flex machines that also did IP 1080p.
Yep.
Will they be incompatible to be able to?
So there's going to be, I mean, there's a fine line on how far back I can actually test.
Is there a date you decided to cut off, like 2014 or?
I mean, I only went back to test physically here on 2017 machine or newer. That's what I went in to test on.
Oh, because that's what we asked.
Yes.
A dealer's going to say, hey, listen,
But
this customer has an older machine and wants to do cloud.
And I totally agree. And there are more technical sides than just the actual physical specification. The protocols themselves are different throughout the years. We've had several different generations of protocols. Now we're on version 4.0 on recorders. So those protocols have even been changed again. So what's fully supported on the backend software level has been changed over the years. That's why even Smart ICRSS, after a certain point, will not work on older gear. Like the Smart ICRSS version 2 desktop software does not work on 2011, 2012 machines because the protocols have been changed over the years, and it's such a big change that they can no longer match up.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a limit. At the end of the day, our TSP feed itself is a raw video stream.
That's right.
As long as I can get a raw video stream, I can record 24/7, no problem. You're gonna face problems when you're trying to deal with motion. So if they go for an event-based plan, trying to save money, but they have a super old gear, it's probably not gonna work. They're gonna run into issues. At that point, your customer either buy a new recorder or you gotta go for the continuous plan. And you're not gonna have motion tags on your playback. It's just gonna be 24/7 in that situation. Other customers that have newer gear, they'll have 24/7 recording and they'll have the motion tags, they'll get it all. But for somebody that has really old gear, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. There was a question that was already asked of me about an NBR 104 Wi-Fi, which basically they wanted to add a dinger to it, and
Okay.
it doesn't have an RTS feature.
Well, the dinger itself has an ITS,
The dinger,
but
the-
the old 104 did not support ITS.
That's all. Those things are gonna pop up.
It's gonna happen. So there are gonna be limitations when it comes to older gear. As long as you're able to add it to a recorder, realistically, it should be able to work. Older gear might have to get firmware updates in some cases. But again, now you're also talking about you might have to factor reset your system after updating it. So there is that other side to it. How much time do they want to invest in trying to make it work? That goes back to the installer and his customer, because they're going to be billing their client, obviously, at that point. I wouldn't go too far in the past.
Okay.
2016, it might be your iffy line. Before that, I mean, it's going to be.
Tell me 2017.
2017 is what I tested.
Yeah, we've
Here's
tested
the fire. I don't have
I've
beer to
been
test
waiting for
with.
this to happen, so I'm not putting any, I'm not putting any curses in it.
All right, so let's go ahead and advance unless anybody else have any questions about the 24/7. All right, so how do you get started? How do you get set up? What is involved in basically getting set up? Quite simply, you basically just download our software, you get it installed. I recommend starting with the desktop software first. You can download the mobile software, but you can't register devices to the mobile app. And again, the mobile app is meant to be simple and easy, so we don't add every single feature and function in there. Use the desktop software, register your own email. It's free to set up. You can set up 100 accounts. It doesn't charge you anything to set up an account. The only time you're going to get charged is when you actually want to pay your subscription for the camera fee. So after you signed up and you got your software installed, then you go ahead and you start adding your sites. Your sites are kind of, think of them as your grouping or locations. You can put an address, you can not put an address. It's your choice. You can name them whatever you want. One of the tech support team, Danny, asked a very good question, which was, well, what if they have a location and then they want to break up the location, like patio cameras, front patio, back patio, or inside, outside, etc. They want to group the cameras up. Well, you can group them up by sites technically as well. Each site will be its own grouping. You just named it patio and front, back, inside, out, stuff like that. And you can break them up that way. Otherwise, every camera that's added in the group is just going to be listed in the group. Once you've created all your sites, if you added your recorders, cameras, etc., you simply choose your plan, and then that's it. You're done. Put your credit card information. You're done. You can just view your live view, playback, etc., whenever you want. So within a few steps, it's not rocket science. It's not that hard to figure out. It's easy to set up. You just kind of punch in your information, and you're good to go. Obviously, there are a couple of technical things that need to be done, which is port forwarding, and we'll go over that as well. So on the next slide, it talks about the setup requirements itself. So as mentioned before, we recommended 2 megapixel resolution. Obviously, you want to stick with that resolution. There is one other thing I made a request for on the platform to see if we can do. The Valor team is looking to see if we can add it in there, which is to support the third stream from a camera. Because what if a customer has an 8 megapixel camera, but the third stream supports 1080p, it's 2 megapixel, then we want to be able to utilize that third stream. So that way they can still record locally at their high resolution, but take advantage of the third stream for the cloud to save some money. That is something we're going to work on. It's not currently available. I don't have a date of when it will be available, but it is something we plan to work on. As mentioned before, third-party cameras, you have to add them to a IC real-time recorder. Motion events, again, may or may not work. A lot of different manufacturers out there, a lot of different protocols. Some people update their third-party cameras, some people don't. So it's going to be a hit or miss. I don't guarantee anything with the third-party cameras other than that I can get you 24/7 recording, as long as you add it to our IC real-time recorder. Well, I recommend port forwarding in the recorder because you can do one port forwarding rule instead of having to port forward 10 or 15 cameras. So one of the things that I know everybody's probably asking, well, what about P2P? Unfortunately, P2P is not available yet. It is something we are striving to work on to integrate. However, there's a lot of back-end stuff that has to be able to be done and put in place before that's able to be done. And I don't have an exact timeline because it can take anywhere from, I don't know, another 6 months up to a year to get developed. It takes a lot of work to develop this. And our resources are currently limited, so it's going to be a while until that's fixed and working. So in the meantime, I have them focusing on other stuff to make sure everything else, the basic functionality is all working optimally first. And then we can work on advancing some of the functionalities. So in the meantime, we do require you to port forward the TCP and the RTSP from your recorder. Obviously, the port numbers are going to be dependent on whatever your recorder system's network settings are. For that, they can always check their system, or they can talk to tech support if they don't know how to find that info. And then besides that compression, we support H.264 and H.265.
And that's the requirement. You're requiring that channel and encode have to be set up at 30 frames per second.
Maximum of 30 frames per second.
Max.
So they can do 15, they can do 20, they can do 30. If they do a 60 frame per second, we're only going to record it at 30 frames.
So that goes.
So they're going to be losing out some of the frames anyway. So I mean, there's no point in waiting for this to go up on extra bandwidth on the network. So it's recommended to stay at 30 frames max.
Yeah, so when you go to the higher resolution cameras, the frame rate always drops.
The frame rate always drops. So it does. I don't mind if it's a low
Yeah.
frame rate. It's just the max threshold is 30 frames.
Yeah. Is there any advantage to keeping it full frame or not really? As far
So
as,
technically,
as far as
30 frames per second on a technical level is real time viewing.
Exactly.
15 frames per second is half real time, so it's not fully smooth. So if you run across the camera, you can almost see some jittery depending on how fast the person's running across the
So
camera.
experience some latency.
Correct. It'll look like it's latency, but in reality, the camera's recording just fine. The spot's recording just fine. It's just that you have your frames too low.
Right. And the other question I had, just to make sure, is this third-party billing or is it we doing the bill? Is it real time?
So the billing is all done. I think they're using Stripe for our credit card processor,
Yeah.
but the invoice billing and all that, the invoices can be found directly on the platform.
And then
So like I Realtime's not sending them an invoice. We're not sending them a bill.
So they will, somebody puts a credit card in, then user puts a credit card in,
Yep.
and it's about to expire, will they be notified that? Because if it expires, they're gonna be cut off, or they'll be notified?
So what ends up happening is it's gonna attempt to make the charge, because we're not checking every single day whether their card is expired or
You
not.
know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, when their card's about to
Somebody
expire.
expired, now they cut them off.
We do,
They have no cloud
as
service.
far as I know, we give them a grace period.
Okay,
There's a few days grace period. We will try to attempt the credit card transaction the first time. It's gonna fail in that case, if it expired. And then they're gonna get an email notice, hey, your card was rejected, if failed, please update and verify your credit
it'll
card.
fail, but it won't stop recording.
It won't stop recording. We still give them a day or two grace period to kind of go through and fix it.
They just have to pay.
And then we'll tell them, be like, hey, look, you need to go pay for it, or,
Yeah, I'm saying, they gotta, if they want it.
and then if they want it, they're gonna go home, they're gonna update it, and they're gonna pay for it.
Again.
If they don't, then eventually after it's gonna try again, and it's okay.
That's cool.
So, all right, so we covered that. Now, there is something to keep in mind when you're dealing with 265. Technically, so this is gonna be a little more technical here. 265 as a codec has licensing fees. Not every platform in the world is gonna pay those licensing fees. So not every single browser pays for those licensing fees. Not every operating system is willing to pay for those fees as well. Like if you try playing an H.265 video using Windows Media Player that comes with Windows, it tells you have to pay for the codec. I think they charge like $5 for it because they want you to pay for that fee. Otherwise, they got to dish out the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Now, with that being said, not every platform officially supports 265, like Chrome and all these web browsers don't officially support 265. Some browsers support it a little bit. I don't think Safari natively supports it. Mac generally doesn't spend a lot of support on 265 as far as I'm aware. So when you play back video that's 265 on some of these platforms, like Google Chrome, if you're using the web browser, or if you're using a Safari, or just Mac and natively, or Windows natively, a lot of times the video doesn't play smooth or doesn't play at all. It's because of the lack of compatibility or support for that codec. So in order to circumvent that, we now have to take your 265 video and convert it to 264. Obviously, there's going to be a delay. You're going to experience latencies. Mac users especially will experience latencies when they're dealing with H.265. So it's just something to be mindful of in case if the customer says, well, I got this and it's working on here, but it doesn't work as good on my Mac. This is why. Just something to kind of keep in mind, just in case if we have anybody that's asking any questions or says what platform they're using. Just at that point, it's like, oh, I recommend using 264 if they're natively using 265. Or I'm sorry, they're using a Mac computer. I personally use a Mac. It loads up just fine, but then again, I spent some money on mine, so there's been advancements done on my equipment. Not everybody's spending as same price tag. So if you get a lower end, let's say maybe the Mac Mini with only 8 gigs of RAM, it might not perform as well as some of the other units. So we're going to go ahead and continue from here unless anybody has any other questions about system requirements. All right. So we were talking about plan, pricing, etc. Snapshot plan. It starts at its snapshot plan is just $2 a month. Snapshots every 15 seconds, 30-day storage. This is straight up snapshot, no video. It's not going to record your live video feed. You can still view live on the camera feed, and you can go back and play back the snapshots as a time lapse, or you can download the individual snapshots or play it back as a time lapse. But it's not an actual true video consistently playing. So there are going to be obviously gaps in your footage. So if you need something that's going to make sure there's no gaps, then go with the other plans. Any questions about the snapshots? All right, we'll continue. So here's the price breakdown on the other plans. On the left-hand side, you're going to see in the middle column sections, you're going to, on the left, starting on the left column, we got the storage duration, then you got the price points between event-based or continuous. So storage duration, pretty obvious, how long we're going to be storing that video footage. So if I record it today, how long is it going to stay on the cloud? It will stay for 14 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years. That's not, you're paying $100 for 2 years, you're paying, or $50 for 2 years, you're paying that every single month. It's just that we're going to store your data for the next 2 years of the video footage that was captured.
You know, that also goes to why you still have local recorders.
Yep.
Right?
Let's say they go event-based, you do a 30-day plan for event-based for $6. So every month, you're gonna get charged $6 for each camera. So if you have 5 cameras, that's $6 per camera, it's $30. And then if it's just one camera, then it's only $6. It's per camera per month. So 30 days of storage, that means for the next 30 days, I can watch the clip that happened today. On the 31st day, it's gone. Unless they download it, it's gone. I can't go back and retrieve it. I'm sorry, have a nice day. Technically, on the back end of the server, we still give a grace period of a day, but I'm not saying that. You pay for 30 days of storage, you've got 30 days of storage. You can only play back the last 30 days. 30 days and a half, 31 days, depending on when you play. You'll still be able to play it back slightly before the 30-day mark, but in reality, that's just us giving you a grace period to still get your last footage before you lose it. But if you only pick the 14-day retention plan and something happened 20 days ago, I'm sorry, you can only play back until the last 14
Like having
days.
a small hard drive.
Yeah.
I record it over.
Oh, can I upgrade my plan and get the data? No, the data's gone. We already deleted. You can upgrade the plan, but the data's gone. There's nothing I can do for you. So that goes down the list. Event-based, that's all motion event. Again, that requires motion to be set up on the recorder. It requires motion to be set up on the camera and actually recording and working correctly. And it also requires them to be on the latest protocols, meaning 2018 firmware or newer. And almost every single piece of hardware from 2017 at this point has 2018 or newer firmware. So they'll be able to make sure the protocols are matching up correctly. Continuous plan, you'll record continuously, so the 24/7. And you'll also get event-based. When you go on playback, there'll be yellow markers underneath the red timeline. telling you when there was motion, but it's basic motion. And that's basically it between the event based and continuous and the fact that everything's built monthly. Any questions about billing? All right,
Price per channel is the same thing as price per camera?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just another one.
Yeah.
Price per channel, price per
Can
camera.
we change that to camera?
Yeah, we can change this deck however you guys want.
Okay.
So this deck, I took it from you and I modified it.
I saw
modified it
some slides,
somewhat.
I was like, ugh. let's
A la
come back
carte
to it.
I modified quite a bit of it. I mean, this slide, it's just that I had to do it on
I
the
know.
fly. And I didn't want to bug you
I
guys.
knew it was changed, I was messaging them like, that was changed, right?
So I showed you guys access to this deck, and then I hit a bunch of slides that I thought weren't accurate
Oh,
for the
that's good.
description.
Yeah.
But we can circle back to that later if you guys need some
Yeah.
input or have any questions. Well, we'll get an actual deck together for you guys to be able to present it. I'm also stating it for sales, and I care because this video is gonna get shared with the rest of the team as well. But there will be a separate deck later on, guys.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Camera channel.
For the per channel, per camera, what if I have a camera with multiple channels? Do I get away with just paying for one camera or am I getting charged?
No. Every time for that camera, let's say you have the 4-lens M80V.
Yep.
There's 4 independent channels when you add it to our recorder. So when you add it to our cloud system, we see it as 4 independent channels. So you're gonna pay for 4 channels.
Okay.
4 channels.
Okay, I just
But
want
if you have like a pano,
You didn't pay for one.
you only pay for one because it's only one stream.
With 4 cameras, right?
But with 4 cameras,
Right,
it's one stream.
They're
but it's
stitched together, they're stitched, exactly. One.
However, a panel has a higher resolution than just your standard 1080.
Right.
So you are gonna pay slightly more.
So Hattie, hey Hattie, so technically you could do one of the 4 for cloud. I don't know why you would do that, but you could, right?
Yes, you could, like, let's say if I had like, the one sitting, let me say I had the M80V sitting in my lobby, and I had one watching the front door, one watching the hallways. I don't care about the hallways, I need to make sure I can keep the front door cloud recorded.
Front door,
Then
right.
then you can do that, you can only add that one channel if you want to, you
Yeah,
don't
right.
have to subscribe. All right, so let's go ahead and continue from here. I believe this is the last slide. All right, so when will this release? The exact date is still to be decided. The reason why it's to be decided is because what we're gonna first do is we're gonna be doing the beta test, closed beta test. Meaning we're gonna have some of our higher end dealers go ahead and test it out, some of the people that can provide us actual feedback and see what they think about it overall. As long as there's no major issues that are considered broken, that would put a hard stop to this and has to be fixed before, then at that point, okay, we can fix the few bugs that may have arisen during that time period. Then we can move towards taking it to market, which at that point, the marketing team will have like their 90-day time period to go ahead and work on presenting and creating all the assets and pushing it out. That's why a lot of these assets, like this deck, is not the finalized deck because all the assets are still not ready. We're still in the closed beta phase basically at this point. So after that, then we'll go ahead and eventually bring it to market and then release it. No, should something come up and it needs to happen, otherwise it's not going to sell type thing. It's a make it or break it deal topic. Then guess what? I can't release it until that gets fixed. And then at that point, it's however long it takes the Valor team to develop it or fix it, and then add that in and make the changes to make sure it's working the way they want it. And then at that point, we will have to decide if we want another beta test or if we go to market after that.
So you guys have already beta tested this to this point?
We've done alpha tests. So the testing phases, there's a thing called alpha test, you get your beta test, and then your public test or just release at that point.
Up to how many,
So-
how many users were being used? Because I'm thinking capacity, once you start getting thousands of people.
So I know they did
Exactly.
they used one chain to do some testing with. So there was like a bunch of stores in a bunch of different states that they did testing with. I don't have the exact numbers because it's the Valor team to do their own testing. From my end, from here, I mean, obviously I had myself testing that, processing it. Chris tested it a bit. Andrew, Matt, Bob, we all were poking around through it and using it as DV. But it's on an alpha test, it's a small stage test. The beta test is when we start doing the bigger test to see in other states how it performs and with more users. I think I was talking with Andrew, I think that we're gonna give out like a total of 100 camera channels worth of beta test usage. Whether we, I guess, still gotta discuss that with Lewis and Sean, whether we break that up to each person only getting 4 channels, does each person only get 2 channels? How do they wanna break it up? Obviously, the minimum amount we give to each user, the more users we can get for testing. But we'll get all that finalized and then we'll send you guys that stuff via. So the question is, when originally I put on this when can you get access as well? I was gonna send you guys all the email right away and give you guys access right away. However, there's been a few bumps and a few bugs that I found. And I told Kevin to first fix those. So I'm waiting for the next updated version, and then I'm gonna give them to you guys. So hopefully by the end of this week, I should be able to get you guys this actual software and poke around with. But in the meantime, we'll go over the software now unless anybody has any questions.